Hi, everybody. I'm Scott,
I'm Luke.
And I'm Jonathan.
and this is the No Way to Hollywood podcast. We're glad you're here.
Well, some of us are.
We're all here, right? Like virtually.
No, I
I'm
mean,
so
like some of
confused.
us are glad that you're here. No, we're glad.
Oh, it was about the. Okay, I'm with
It
you
was
now.
about you, the audience. Thanks for being here.
On the other hand, we're not glad that each other are here.
No,
I was so
I
confused
never,
by
I
that first
never
statement.
insinuated that.
I was like, "Who's glad about what?" I'm so all right.
Well, for as long as we've been talking about movies, we are excited to announce that movie theaters are talking. They're just talking about it. They're thinking about it. They might actually reopen around the middle of the summer. How excited are you guys for that?
Luke,
On
go
a scale
ahead.
of what? On a scale of 1 to 5,
Sure.
non-applicable because I'm not going to the theaters. I have a family. I don't got no time for that, and I'm gonna have another kid. No time for that. Definitely no time for that.
I'm semi excited. I would like to see new movies. I'd like to go to the Dolby Atmos theater and enjoy that experience. Though, if going to the Dolby Atmos theater means sitting in a room for 2.5 hours with circulated air, with I don't care if it's 30% capacity, 50% capacity, whatever it is, I don't know. Even as a film lover, there's part of me that questions whether or not this is a reasonable thing to do. But I mean, I like movies. I want to see Tenet. I'll tell you this: if I don't go in the summer and they're open in December and Dune shows up, I'm going. It's happening. I'm seeing Dune in the theater. It's happening.
Okay,
And Top Gun, I'll see too.
I'll modify slightly. I don't care at all that theaters are reopening, but I do care that movies will start to be released and I will eventually be able to see them.
That's a pretty good point. I'm actually quite excited, but that's just me. I don't even know what movie I'm going to go see because I don't know what movies are going to be there.
If
So
I can
why
make
are you excited, Scott?
Because I don't have to sit at my house.
See, that's funny because I'm like, if I can make a good enough home theater, I don't know if I ever need to go back to the theater until there's at least a. I do like. I do. I like going to a theater with the crowd and then seeing a movie and I do enjoy that. I think it's valuable. I think it's good, but I'm okay making the best home theater I possibly can and waiting for things, and then when the virus is, when things are a bit more less risky, then going back to the theater. I'm okay with that idea.
Okay.
I feel like this is echoing back to our episode about like
Going movie watching experience.
What was that, Luke? I didn't hear you because Scott was talking.
Was he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott.
Luke, what were you saying?
I was saying, I feel like this harkens back to our episode about the proper viewing experience of movies.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I say, like, if I can get a theater that actually has projection, good sound quality, and the visual quality is up to par, like if that's all there and it's a big enough screen, I don't know if I need to go as often.
Well, as we continue to talk about that, let's just throw a link back to our own podcast from a previous episode down there.
Link below.
And let's move on to the topic that we were maybe thinking about talking about tonight. We're going to do a little bit of comparative cinema in the animation field as we take a look at both Dreamworks and Pixar. Yes, I do know that Pixar started making their animated movies first when they brought out Toy Story. And it was 3 years later that DreamWorks kind of entered the scene with Ants. Gentlemen, let's just kick it off with this. What are some of your favorite Pixar movies? Let's leave it at Pixar for now.
Well, I'd just like to say that in the war between Pixar and DreamWorks, okay, in that classic long-standing war of which does better animated films, Sony wins because they made Into the Spider-Verse. But when we get into our favorite Pixar films, my favorite Pixar films, I actually like. Okay, let's start with the basics. Toy Story. It is the one that started it all. That franchise, those 3 films, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. There's a 4th one. I don't like it. I think it's a waste of effort. Sorry, don't do it. But Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, that trilogy and that franchise, like that animation style, especially since I was a kid, like I went to the theater and saw Toy Story. That animation style is that movie. That's what started it. That's where it all came from. The ideas that your toys came to life has haunted me to this day. I'm more of a hoarder to this day because on some level, I think subconsciously, I still feel like, but that thing could be alive. I can't just throw that thing away and make its entire life purpose go away. I would never do that to that toy. I loved that toy.
And Jonathan's baby rattle can be found in a box in his room.
No, see, I was older than that, Scott.
Oh,
okay. My goodness. No, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, that franchise, those are some fantastic animated films.
Okay, for me, Pixar is good for a while. And my problem is that they all kind of run together for me.
So
like they're all good until you come up with the ones that are like, well, that was okay for a Disney movie. You know,
so here's a question. Where does it happen for you? Because I think everyone's had this experience, and I think it's different movies and different times for people. So I know for me that Finding Nemo's okay. I know people love Finding Nemo. You can put your hate in the comments below. That's fine. I'm not a huge fan of Finding Nemo, but it's fine. But when you get to Up was the first Pixar movie. Either that or I don't remember which came out first, Up or Brave. Let me double check that. But Up, the first 10 minutes you cry. It's amazing filmmaking, amazing animation, and I don't care after that. I don't care about that movie. I don't want to watch it ever again. I do not care. Now, people think it's great, and that is great. Good for you. But gotta say, okay, I'm sorry. I gotta go earlier, guys. I gotta go earlier than that. Cars.
Don't say bad things about Cars.
Cars is a film about cars. Driving around and trying to figure out how to like drive better. And
no, it's a story about like the destruction of like towns due to like
the interstate system.
Right. And like progress under capitalism and not learning to respect people who may seem to be on a lower tier than you and things like that. There's like whole video essays on this. If I can find it, link below.
It turns out I didn't know because I didn't care because that movie sucked, okay? That movie was boring. I didn't get any of that because I don't remember because I don't give a flip because it was a bunch of cars. The only thing that happened was like Mater was like, I'm Mater, and I go like,
I'm Toe Mater.
Like that's all I can remember that. I don't know, guys. Cars I didn't like. Up I didn't really like. I got some minority, like some like small. I'm in the minority. Everyone loves these movies about Pixar, or we're okay with them. And I feel like I was always on the level of just like that movie sucked. I don't want to watch that movie again. Up, don't want to watch that movie again.
I almost
we've lost
just
it.
Go through all the Pixar titles and let me tell you why. Have you tell me why they're all bad.
But they're not all bad. See, that's the thing. They're not all bad. There's, of course, Pixar's fantastic. It's just where does it go bad? So I'm earlier than probably than either of you. So where are you guys? Like, where does it fall apart for you guys?
I mean, I do love Toy Story from the beginning. I am actually not as big of a fan of all the sequels of Toy Story as most people. I actually do enjoy Cars, fully realizing that it's got its issues. But my surprise Pixar movie that I just absolutely love is Big Hero 6.
That's not Pixar.
Yeah, it is. Is that Dreamworks?
That's not Pixar. Big Hero 6 is not Pixar, my friend.
Is it just Disney?
Wow, I want you all to know, audience, we are experts in this field. We know everything there is to know about animation, Pixar versus DreamWorks versus anything else. We in no way would lead you on and pretend that Big Hero 6 is somehow, you know, a Pixar film when it's clearly not. Let me look that up for you real quick.
So now I just want to bring in some Studio Ghibli all of a sudden, but no, I'm just kidding.
All right, Big Hero 6 is just Disney, apparently.
Yeah.
You mean Disney actually broke with Pixar to actually make a good movie?
Oh, let's talk about this for a minute. Disney and Pixar. Okay, their history is a sordid tale of like, I don't even know what, right? So you've got Disney doing their cell animation stuff, and then you've got Pixar who comes in and they're like this like scrappy little group who's like using computers to do stuff. What? And Disney's like, okay, we'll let you do stuff. And then Pixar becomes huge. And they're like, we want our own freedom. We want to secede from the nation. And Disney's like, you can't do that. Don't you remember American history? And then Pixar's like, screw you. We're going to do it anyway, sort of. And then there's going to be like this crazy thing where like they spend a ton of money and they bring them all back in and they're back in the fold. And there's kind of like this stuff. But now they're running like 2 studios. And you start having like Pixar stumbling and Disney doing better. And then it's like, what's happening in the world right now? Like, what is happening? And then ultimately they kind of work it out because the mouse.
Did you just make a Civil War comparison to Pixar and Disney?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right.
I'm a little distraught right now, I'm just saying, but you know.
I'd like to say that I also enjoy Monsters, Inc. That's a Pixar film that I enjoy.
Yeah, and there's also The Incredibles. Let's
The Incredibles is fantastic.
See, but Monsters U is terrible.
Right. That's after, let me see here. Where is that? Oh, yeah. That's after Cars. And it's also after Up.
And after Brave.
And after Brave.
I watched a very fascinating video essay on why Brave could have been great and was terrible. Link below. So, like, while you learn nothing from us watching this episode, there are going to be some great video essays you can go watch from people who know stuff.
Oh, wow. Falling apart at the seams in this episode. Okay. Anybody else?
This is gold. What are you talking about? This is what people love watching.
We'll find out from all 6 viewers. Anyway.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. I'm so sorry. Anyway. Let's talk about DreamWorks then. We're gonna I've talked about movies I like from Pixar.
Well, okay, Jonathan. Let me ask you one more question because
there
is one more Pixar, I think, movie that I actually really don't like all that much at all.
Okay,
which is WallE.
You go straight to. I'll punch you in the face. I'll punch you straight in the face, sir. You're out of your mind. WallE is fantastic.
It's a good thing we're not all in the same room right now.
You just have a brawl going on right now.
The worst thing to happen.
Okay, so Scott, explain.
WallE falls into all the over political hype movies that I absolutely hate because it decides to be more about, I mean, forget about the stupid robots that somehow fall in love with each other. And let's just talk about how fat humanity's gotten and how we destroyed our Earth and all this other stuff.
You just said, let's forget about the majority of the movie and focus on the part of the movie that's at the end of the movie.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So just to interject some like reasonability here, some history. Earth being destroyed and like humans being fat and stuff were not part of the message of the movie. That was something that the filmmakers were like, we need a reason for people to be off planet. We'll choose this one. They were not trying to make a political statement in it at all, from my understanding. My understanding is
they did a fine job of making a political statement, and I hated it.
Okay, can we take a step back?
No.
Take a step back.
You want to take a step back?
Take a step to the side. Maybe just don't take a step. Maybe just shut up. And then I'll tell you that what I think you should focus on though is look at the animation in the first 40 minutes of that movie. There's not a single line of dialogue. You understand exactly what's going on. You understand the character. You begin to empathize. The romance between WallE and Eve is awesome. It is great stuff. Yeah, you're even quoting how she says things. Why are you doing that? Because it's memorable and it's good. And I can't, but you just insulted you. What? What? You know the worst thing that happened to WallE? One of the worst thing that happened to WallE? It came out after Cars and before Up. It was sandwiched by some turd and some other turd, and it's a good movie in between. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'm going to now take a step to the other side.
But Scott, like, so it got political. Seriously though,
it's
there's
not
nothing
even
else
trying to be political. Okay.
Well, you interpreted it as a political statement about the environment and what we should do and whatever. Okay, fine. That notwithstanding, the rest of the movie, you seem to think that was the only thing. That's apparently the bad taste in your mouth that came after watching the movie. But what about the first 45 minutes? What about the WallE story? What about Eve? What about like the whole thing? What about the rest of it?
You know, I appreciated some of the moments that WallE had. Then Eva shows up, and it's pretty much downhill from there.
It's downhill from Eve showing up?
Yeah, it really is.
What about he's like trying to impress her, and he does this little garbage compacting thing. He's like, oh, and he spits out the thing. And he's all like,
I said
ta-da!
about the time he shows up. He has a couple of good moments.
There's also like great little minor characters in that. You know, like the little cleaning robot who just is so like frustrated that like somebody made a mess on his floor. So good.
I mean,
okay.
I'll admit, Scott.
Coming back over to center here. All right. So, what else? What else here?
Clearly, we disagree on Pixar, except for Toy Story, which is quite possibly the only good Pixar movie now.
Wow.
Whoa. What about Monsters, Inc.? Monsters, Inc., though. Come on.
Monsters, Inc. is great.
I will give you Monsters, Inc. I will give you Incredibles.
Yes.
I don't remember A Bug's Life because I was a DreamWorks Ants guy. That's who I was. I think I saw A Bug's Life once and I liked it. And I don't think I've watched it ever again. And I watched Ants a bunch as a kid and really enjoyed it.
What was it about Ants that you enjoyed? Because I remember seeing Ants in the theater and I never saw Bug's Life for some time. And as I look back at it, I don't know that I liked either of the two films, to be honest. As a kid, it's hard to get that far back in my mind for this one because it wasn't like wasn't the best thing in the world to me as a kid. I just enjoyed it, and I liked that it had it has like an entire war sequence. I liked the separation of Ants' drones versus Ants' military versus the royalty of the ants. I liked exploring like the picnic world. As a kid, I had fun like going into that world and understanding what things were and having fun with that. As I got older, I started to like more of the like commentary of you're stuck in your place and you want to get out of your place and I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed those characters. I enjoyed and it's ultimately the story is like a romance mixed with this like political uprising film, right? Like it's this fundamentally. Here's a guy trying to do a coup, all sneakily and evil, right? And this guy who doesn't want to be a drone anymore is going to somehow be instrumental in stopping him and saving the ant colony, right? I like that. And as a kid also, I was the kid who watched the movie and they go to war with the termites, which I did not understand as a kid. It was like, well, I think I did understand they didn't need to go, but I didn't understand the grave like evil of it where it's like you're making people go to war for no reason. This is awful, right? And the termite war was epic, and then his like one buddy was dead, which is kind of funny when you think back. It's like he's talking to a head. He's talking to a severed head the entire time. That's kind of darkly humorous later. But as a kid, I just cried. I just cried my eyes out that like the guy had died and then goes back. And I don't know. It was just it took me on a journey, and I liked it. Okay, I'll buy that. Yeah, no, thinking about DreamWorks for me, I think the highlights are Shrek, the original, and nothing after that, and Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, Kung Fu Panda is great. Yeah. Oh, and you cannot forget How to Train Your Dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon is kind of right on the cusp for me. I absolutely love it. I enjoyed it. I think my big issue with How to Train Your Dragon is I didn't get into it until later. I'm pretty sure I had to see the first two before I went and saw the third one in the theater. But Kung Fu Panda just, there is something about that movie that I just thoroughly enjoy from the get-go. Just love the character and just who he is, who he wants to be, and then ultimately who he becomes, which is pretty cool.
Well, and the family, his family stuff is good. And yeah, How to Train Your Dragon, the music and the animation, and just there's some great stuff in there. And yeah, the flying sequence.
Also, got to admit, like one of my favorite sound design things in animation comes from How to Train Your Dragon, and it's the oh man, what's the really cool dragon? His dragon, which is Hiccup, and it's the like Nightwing or whatever. Night Fury, right. Night Fury, dude. When a Night Fury dives, and it's got that whistling sound effect that just keeps on getting higher and higher pitched as it gets faster and faster and faster. That gives me chills. I remember being in the theater and watching the movie, being surprised by how good the movie was and how invested I was getting into the film. And you get to the end with the giant dragon and all this stuff, and and the Night Fury, Hiccup's just diving, and you just hear that from the clouds, and you're like, this just gives me chills. Just gives me chills, like, oh, he's coming. Like I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Luke, how about you? Any particular DreamWorks favorites?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, like, How to Train Your Dragon is phenomenal, and yes, I also enjoyed Kung Fu Panda. So, yeah, I like that.
I really enjoyed Shrek. And I even liked Shrek 2 when it came out. I really liked both of those films when they came out. Again, I was younger as a kid. I haven't revisited. Here's the issue with this conversation for me to some extent is I haven't revisited a lot of these. I'm truly going off of what I remember as a kid, the one or two times I may have watched it. And in Ant's case or some other movies' cases, when I watched a bunch, I watched it over and over because we had it on VHS. To give you an idea of the time frame, right? But I mean, Pixar versus DreamWorks. That's a classic question that's being brought up, I think. And I feel like the answer to the question is pretty simple. Pixar typically makes better quality films, I think, generally speaking, especially in their early days. And then I think that DreamWorks starts to fill in the gaps as I personally believe that Pixar starts to become more and more vapid and losing track of what they can do. And that's where you get stuff like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon, and some of those greats come from DreamWorks. And now I have to say that looking at from this list, at least in the last 5 years or so of animated films from both companies, I don't find either of those to be particularly interesting story-wise, or sequels to films that I didn't like as much as the original, and new ideas that I didn't see because I didn't care to see it, or I did see it and didn't think it was that great. From both Pixar and DreamWorks, I find that both of them have sort of not done anything great lately, in my opinion. And that's why I joked, but I am serious when I say Sony wins right now, because Sony made one of the best animated films ever made in Spider-Verse. On animation alone, it wins. It's crazy. On story, it does a fantastic job. So anyway, that's how I feel like it was originally Pixar. Then DreamWorks came in and made things better because Pixar was losing their footing. And now they're both in a malaise. And now Sony has done something awesome in animation.
And I would say that Pixar starts out making really solid movies, exploring pretty heavy stuff through the worlds that they're able to build, which I really like and respect. And I don't go back and revisit their movies. And then eventually DreamWorks comes along and makes some really fun movies that are enjoyable. And I haven't gone back to revisit them. And then by now, yes, Pixar, it's like, what are you guys even doing? I have not watched any of their most recent films. They don't catch my attention. Okay, something else that's interesting for me about Pixar is that when they first started making movies, right? They're like, here's this movie. It's about toys. And you're like, uh-huh. And then you go watch it, and you're like, wow, that was great. Like, now here's a movie about monsters that scare children for energy. Uh-huh. And then you watch it and it's great. And then you like, this is a movie about cars being people. And you're like, uh-huh. And then you watch it and you're like, okay, and I enjoyed it. Okay. So like, wow, it was enjoyable. And then it's like, now we're making a movie about an old dude who has balloons. And you're like, what? And then you go see it and you're like, okay, there was some good stuff in there. And I will probably never watch it again. And then, you know, like there's, and now it's like, what if a blue wizard creature lost its parent? What? I don't even know. Like, what is this movie? What? And then like jazz musician. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. And really, it fell apart for me at Brave, where I was like, you're no longer making a movie about a world that you have created. You're just making a movie, and you didn't do a good job. And then watching recently the video essay on why, it's pretty horrifying.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point about the world creating, Luke, because it was, if you look at Pixar, it's, I mean, even The Incredibles somewhat borrows that superhero world that you kind of get into.
Yeah, so many Bond references and stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but you know, part of the reason that's as great as it is because, you know, we have those other memories. I mean, Toy Story was this just whole new world when it first came out and was just, it felt so real at the same time that, I mean, it is part of the reason why that film, above all others, I mean, I would clearly put Toy Story as the best Pixar movie, and it was absolutely, you know, and it's the first one they made, right? You know, everything from there was downhill for me. And there's other movies that I enjoyed and that I liked, but I mean, is there really a better Pixar movie than Toy Story?
Well, I mean, there are people who disagree with you that that's their best. You know, like Monsters Inc. is clearly great. And not just because they're like, hey, we worked really hard to create a new hair physics engine. Like, they actually told a story, right? So
I do think that, I mean, I need to revisit, like, to really do this right, I need to revisit all of these and watch them again because it's been so long for some of them. But I remember Monsters Inc. being very, very good, very funny, very intriguing, and ultimately very emotional, very powerful in its storytelling. And I think of The Incredibles as being similar, where I think The Incredibles is one of the more adult friendly of all of the Pixar films. I think it's a film that truly, I think, works on all levels for all ages, where this is just great. This is just fun and interesting and funny and emotional, and I think it hits all the beats. So on those levels, I could go towards, I could see an argument for Monsters Inc. or Incredibles as being the best Pixar film. But I totally understand what you're saying with Toy Story and how it, certainly what it did in the landscape is unprecedented. And their Pixar's, like, if you will, style of storytelling and the sort of what if inanimate objects had feelings is never gets any better than Toy Story. Toy Story is the epitome of that concept. And it's great. And it's very well done. And it also makes me think, as I think about DreamWorks, I kind of, Pixar, except for The Incredibles, I've really had a hard time with anything that's not about like inanimate objects or having feelings, or like, you know, it's got to be something in that world for Pixar stuff to work for me generally. If it's The Old Man and Up, or if it's, I mean, even I haven't seen Onward yet, so I need to probably watch it. But generally, when they do more of a typical like human character and not an inanimate object that is also feeling things or something like that, I find Pixar to be less interesting. Yet DreamWorks does How to Train Your Dragon, which is all human characters and then dragons, right? And I'm fine with that. I'm good with them doing that. I mean, they also do the sort of anthropomorphized, like, you know, Kung Fu Panda stuff and Shrek. You know, it's a bunch of Disney characters. Even Shrek, right? Shrek is an ogre and a donkey and all these fairy tale creatures, but also humans, right? The princess is a human who's also an ogre. The ogres are just humanoid creatures, right? Like there's sort of this I feel like DreamWorks came off with Ants and Shrek and other things, and even though they're kids' films, they also had an interest in being more traditional stories or more traditional characters in some senses, or maybe more adult friendly and thematics here and there than Pixar did.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points in the differences between Pixar and DreamWorks was the ability for DreamWorks to hit more generations. And it's not that adults didn't like Toy Story, but it was definitely more of the nostalgia for them than it was the, oh, this is a movie that I might think was actually made for me. Pixar does a great job of hitting on the kid-friendly, fun movies, but some of just about the majority of the humor you find in them plays more for kids than it does for adults to a certain extent.
See, that's interesting to me because Pixar makes movies about monsters under the bed and about old people who, like, how are you going to market a toy for that? And they make these films about experiences and life and like heavy duty stuff like loss and that kind of things. Whereas I feel that DreamWorks is more like, well, yeah, we'll make them animals, but it's clearly just people, right? Who are like learning how to do their different kung fu moves, or whatever. And so, like, I feel that DreamWorks is more on the we're just here to have fun and tell a fun story through animation rather than Pixar, which I feel is more like this deep exploration of what it means to be human in a inanimate or other way, right? Like Cars or whatever. Like, what would it be like to be a human in this universe like this, which allows us to tap into who we are, right? Which is almost like a Star Trek thing, right? Where it's like, hey, we'll use aliens as a way to help you see things better about humans or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, that's interesting perspective. I do think that there is some truth to that for sure. But I think that's why you feel that Pixar problem of it being the early days when they did that. And I don't think they've been able to do that as well for a long time, right?
Agreed.
And that is special. And that's a Pixar thing. And maybe DreamWorks gets a pass in the long run because it's like, we never tried. Like we're like we never tried to do that same approach.
Right.
We never tried to go that same direction. We were a different thing from the beginning, and we've not really, like, what we've tried to do, we've not run out of gas on. Whatever the next thing is, we can still, that's still our thing. And I don't think that DreamWorks, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, and all these stories, like a good story should, have moments about what does it mean to be human. Kung Fu Panda is about identity, right? It's about who am I in this world? What's acceptance? What about having an adopted father? Right, like there's a whole Kung Fu Panda has some serious themes in it that are very good. All the while, basically being a kung fu movie, which is what makes it fun, right? Like that's not bad, and it doesn't necessarily go to the same depth of emotional resonance as a Pixar film typically does. But I don't know. There's something interesting about how these two approaches. While again, I think it's easy to say Pixar is better earlier and DreamWorks is worse earlier when they're comparing. Well, okay, sure. But in the long run, where we are now, they really are just different things. It starts to become more and more in my mind of it's apples and oranges. They're different. They have different ends and different goals and objectives. And Pixar has not, and I need to check Onward out to make sure I'm not lying here, but I feel like they have not gotten anywhere close to what they used to be able to do. Because that was sort of their shtick, and they've run out of the shtick. They don't know how else to explore that. They're trying to expand. They're trying to figure out what new to do.
And considering I haven't heard anything about Onward, I think I even know people who went and saw it, and they're like, yeah, or the jazz one, whatever that one is. I don't know.
That one's coming out. That one's called Soul.
Right,
yeah.
Soul. Yeah.
I'm actually interested in seeing that one, but we'll see what happens.
I'm like, I never got to see The Good Dinosaur, and from everything I've heard, that's excellent because
it was a cute movie. The Good Dinosaur was a cute movie. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again, but it was a cute movie.
Well, I don't know, Scott. Do you have any kind of summation thoughts on the Pixar DreamWorks animation deal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really has to be a which one do you like better kind of a thing, because as we've kind of figured out, they really they really are trying to be something different. And there are moments in life when you will need one over the other or vice versa, right? So, it's really good. Luke, the one thought I had as you were talking about Pixar, it kind of reminded me more of what like Mr. Rogers tried to do back in the day, of helping kids deal with and give words for like real emotion, real things that they have to deal with in life. And I don't think it's that DreamWorks doesn't do that, but DreamWorks is also the company that, they're the guys that want to have fun, that want to, uh, like it's the quintessential party at the end of Shrek, right? Let's all have a karaoke party and just have a lot of fun together. So yeah, we'll touch on serious themes, but ultimately we're going to have a good time. So yeah.
I have a question for each of you. Out of all the movies you know of Pixar and DreamWorks that are animated, right? Whether you've seen them before or not, what's the one that if you had the time, you would watch, like you want to watch next? If you had any of it, you've seen it before or you've never seen it, what's the one movie, either Pixar or DreamWorks or whatever, that you would want to watch? I know what my answer is. My answer is I want to watch Monsters, Inc. again. Out of everything that's possible, after everything I know is out there that I haven't seen, and everything I have seen from both of these companies, I want to watch Monsters, Inc. again. That's what I want to watch again.
Interesting. I think my choice for this is Kung Fu Panda. I still like, even just thinking about the movie, just get this smile on my face. And I love the fact that it is one of those kind of underdog stories, which ultimately has to have the underdog to win. Like there was no way without the underdog for them to win. So I really enjoy it. I really enjoy some of the themes, and even some of the visuals that they create with the animation are quite amazing, I think. And so I really do appreciate that. So I'm gonna go with Kung Fu Panda.
I'll choose Incredibles. That one's just a lot of fun. I did recently-ish, more recently than any of the other ones, I guess, watch Monsters Inc. We watched Monsters University, and we're like, and then we went and watched Monsters Inc. the next week, and we're like, wow, that movie's so much better. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. I got outvoted tonight, and Pixar is the winner. I'm making that official. So there you go, folks. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to leave it at that for our suggestions tonight. So go out and see some of these great DreamWorks and Pixar movies. You've got Monsters, Inc., you've got The Incredibles, and you've got Kung Fu Panda. Have a good one.
Yeah, please do.
Skadoosh.